Welcome back to the game of Runebound. Now, back to Tobin the Farslayer's turn. With no open challenges on the board, he decides to try his luck back in town with his 5 gold coins. Back in Tamalier, here are his choices. We know he cannot afford the 10 gold coin artifact, so let's look at the 4 gold coin armor. This is a razor shield. You can tell it's a weapon because of the symbol right here. Let's read what it says. Armor, shield, weapon, dagger. Any phase, your hero receives a +2 bonus to combat rolls when defending. And then melee. If your hero successfully defends during this combat phase, you inflict 1 damage on your enemy. Now, looking at Tobin, he might be defending during the melee phase because his attacks are mostly done during ranged. After his town purchases, Tobin is left with 1 gold coin, 2 XP, no damage or fatigue, an ally with no damage or fatigue, 3 worth of trophies, and a new weapon and armor. Now on to the end of movement step for Tobin. Tobin rolls a river and a road, so the colt will be moving on to the river. Because the colt has reached the end of the board game, we need to turn it around. Now on to Jonas the Kind's turn. Jonas is going to attempt to go over to one of those purple challenges to get that colt moving. That means we'll be rolling 3 movement die for the colt to move. But first, let's roll for his movement dice and see if he can get to any of those challenges. With the river and mountain result, Jonas can make it safely to the purple challenge. Let's see if we get to ignore this or if it is an event. If it is a challenge, it will be ignored, but we can roll. The first result is a river. Trying to steer away from the city as much as possible, Jonas is going to move the colt to the river, not in front of the colt, but next to it. For our next result, Jonas rolls river and forest. We have 2 choices. Jonas decides to move northwest to give the colt more opportunities to hit a challenge this next turn. For the last movement dice, Jonas rolls a road, mountain, or plain. Since there are no roads, mountains, or plains right next to the colt, it will stay right there. For the end of movement step, we roll again. Jonas rolls mountains, road, and plains, so the colt will not be moving anywhere. Now on to Tobin the Farslayer's turn. Tobin wants to stay close to the action, so he decides to go on to a green challenge to give the colt a push. This green challenge will be ignored, but 1 movement die will be rolled to see if the colt gets to move yet again. With the result of forest and river, the colt gets to move either to the forest or river. Tobin decides to go ahead and move it to the forest. It is now Jonas the Kind's turn. With the only open marker for a challenge directly underneath the colt, Jonas decides to try to get the colt to move by going to the purple challenge, which will then give him an opportunity to roll 3 movement dice and get the colt moving. Let's see what he gets. Jonas gets a river and a mountain, which will put him right where he needs to be. challenge will be ignored, but we will be rolling 3 movement dice. Let's roll for the first result. It is road, hills, and plains. Jonas moves the colt up to turn over a challenge, but with that done, the colt also infiltrates a town and will now move to the town of Nerkhall. For the second result, we get a road, hills, and plains. So the colt will be moving to the plains. Because it has reached the end of the board game, the colt must be turned around. Last, we get a river and swamp result, which will be perfect since we have a swamp that we could go to. And now for the end of movement, we need to roll 1 more die. The result is hills, plain, and road, so the colt will move north to the plain. Jonas managed to open up a few challenges during his turn, but also to infiltrate a town. Now it's time for Tobin the Farslayer turn. Lots of options for him. The Farslayer rolls, and it's very, very horrible. He gets a bunch of river and swamps results, which are not going to take him anywhere near where he needs to go. So he decides to spend the turn just trying to get the colt to move again, and maybe taking advantage of all the open challenges next turn. So he goes through the swamp, to a road, and on to the plain for a green challenge, which will most probably be ignored. We will ignore this challenge, but roll 1 movement die. Tobin's bad luck shines yet again. He gets a result which will not make the colt move. For his end of movement step, he does a little bit better, getting a river result, being able to turn that marker up ahead. We turn the colt on to Jonas the Kind's turn. Jonas has lots of choices, but he also needs to get the right dice. Let's see if he has better luck than Tobin. He actually barely makes it. He needs to use all of his dice and run around like crazy to get to a green challenge. Let's see what that challenge looks like. For our challenge, we get a Mist Weaver with a health of 2. Let's see if he has an ability. Of course he does. Before combat, test ranged spot 16. I've never seen spot before in this game. Okay, so test spot 16 to spot the Weaver hidden in his mist. If you succeed, combat occurs normally. If you fail, roll a terrain die along with each of your heroes and allies' ranged and melee attack rolls. If a river symbol comes up on the terrain die, the attack roll automatically fails. Oh, yippee! This effect does not apply on defense rolls. Well, at least we have that going for us. As a reward, we will get 2 gold coins. And the stats, 15 and 1 for ranged, 14 and 1 for melee, and 12 and 0 for magic. This guy seems like it's going to give us a hard time. So we roll for the before combat ability, and Jonas gets an 11. With the help of 0 from his ranged, that is not enough to succeed, and we will be rolling a terrain die. Our ally will be attacking in the ranged phase. He has a 1 and he rolls a 14, which is 15. The result on the terrain die do not show a river, which means this attack actually will do damage if we can beat it, and we do. He has a 15. So our ally will be giving this enemy 1 damage. For the melee phase, our hero attacks. However, he only gets an 8, plus 4 that he gets is 12. Even though he did not get a river result, 12 is not enough to give our enemy damage. So our enemy actually gives Jonah 1 damage. Now we move on to the magic phase, but since the enemy gives no damage, we can just go ahead and skip this phase since we would just be defending anyways. So we go back to the range phase. The Slave of the Shackle ally rolls an 11, and plus 1 that he has is 12. There is not a river in the result, but 12 is still not enough to give our enemy damage. So instead, our ally will again get 1 damage. Didn't we just heal you in town? I knew this enemy was going to give us a hard time. On to melee. For the melee phase, Jonas rolls a 13, plus 4 that he has is 17. No river result on the terrain die, so I think this should be enough to hurt and defeat our enemy. Bye-bye. Jonas finally has enough XP to level up, and he will. Looking at his stats, he needs to make a decision. He has an ally that's been attacking on the range phase, although he's really weak on it with just a 0. For the tests, it might be good to pump that up. He has a 4 in both melee and magic, which is a pretty good number. What will Jonas do? He decides to pump up his ranged skills and gets a plus 2. For his end of turn, he gets a road and river. The colt will move to the river. Jonas is sending the colt straight to Tobin the Farslayer.